The thing that happened was in 1960, about 1959, 1960, we invented polymers. And the first thing we did is we created synthetic soled shoes. Before they were leather soled shoes, which are semi-conductive, let's say. But anyhow, and then we carpeted all of our floors with plastic carpets made out of polymers. And so what we did is we insulated ourselves from the earth. So we had these creature comforts, which means everybody can wear shoes now, and they're much cheaper than leather, and they last longer, and you can wear them in the rain. And so there's a lot of comforts in creature comforts or benefits, but nobody recognized that they that we lost our ground, that we cut off our connection with the earth, and we didn't realize that the energy of the earth maintains the electrical stability of your immune system.
Well, I was born in that kind of atmosphere.
Walking on bare feet.
Farming, tilling the soil, walking bare feet.
Walking barefoot on the sand.
Just stand in the grass just for a little while. There's something about that. I don't know if it's the energy.
The need for us to reconnect with Mother Earth.
As we get exposed to more of a concrete jungle, I think that's where we get more diseases and more sickness coming from, because you lose your connection with the earth from whence you come.
I've heard that having your feet on the ground does something in terms of like the minerals in the ground getting absorbed into your body.
So the body is made from the earth, and all the minerals that in the body is from the earth.
More people need to know about this kind of thing instead of just using a drug for every kind of ache and pain.
People should listen to their body and do what makes them feel good.
Going back from where humanity started.
The soil and the sun, that whole grounding, rounded connection. So it's grounding, rounding, rounding, grounding.
The new world has to start from the foundation.
Okay, we have Clint Ober in the house.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm fine, welcome.
So good to have you, Clint.
Well, I'm glad to be here. It's a lot of fun to go out and talk to people about taking the shoes off and getting grounded and experiencing some of the normal health benefits that nature provides to us free.
Well, speaking of those health benefits, I as a girl, I remember grounding myself, but I didn't know that's what I was doing. I played barefoot outside. I loved being in the grass, the sand, just rolling in it. And seem to get away from that because children seem to always understand what they need more. But
Right.
I came by you by way of a good friend.
Uh-huh.
What you should consider doing, because this will help you with a lot of your health challenges. So
Mhm.
let's talk about what the video clip we just played. Some of the people in the video clip just said. I'm impressed that a lot of them understand what earthing is, but how often do we do it?
Well, today we don't, and we don't for several reasons. One, it's 60 years ago. I'm 77, so when I was a kid, we were barefoot all the time. In the 50s, when school was out, you lost the shoes. You didn't put them back on until you had to go back to school, and then they always hurt and they were uncomfortable. And if it rained, you had to carry them because if they got wet, it would ruin them, and all it just goes on and on. But anyhow, over the past the thing that happened was in 1960, about 1959, 1960, we invented polymers. And the first thing we did is we created synthetic soled shoes. Before they were leather soled shoes, which are semiconductive, let's say. But anyhow, and then we carpeted all of our floors with plastic carpets made out of polymers. And so what we did is we insulated ourselves from the earth. So we had these creature comforts, which means everybody can wear shoes now, and they're much cheaper than leather, and they last longer, and you can wear them in the rain. And so there's a lot of comforts in creature comforts or benefits, but nobody recognized that they that we lost our ground, that we cut off our connection with the earth, and we didn't realize that the energy of the earth maintains the electrical stability of your immune system. In a short word.
No, that's interesting that you say that. And I don't think a lot of people are aware that we are connected. We have this polarity within us that connects
Yes.
to this earth.
Mhm.
Explain a little bit more about that, because that's something that we believe. We've got all of this Wi-Fi in our homes. We are surrounded by EMFs no matter where we go. We're now in electronic cars, electric cars. There's so much around us, but we're talking about electricity and electromagnetic forces that are not natural to the body. So when you say we're connected electrically to the earth, explain that.
Okay. When you are standing, first of all, the earth has a subtle charge, meaning it's charged with an abundance of free electrons. And these electrons can move, and the only thing they do is they move and reduce charge. So to give you an example, like in your home, you have grounded outlets. You have a third prong, and you plug your refrigerator in. So when you plug your refrigerator in, then the electrical surface charge of the earth, that energy of the earth, comes up the ground rod, up the ground wire, and envelops your entire refrigerator. And so it's grounded just like the earth. It's like going and touching, except for the paint on them now. But anyhow, the reason for that is if there's an electrical event, there's plenty of free electrons from the earth to reduce the charge and prevent harm, prevent you from getting shocked, and so on. So when you are connected to the earth, when you take your shoes off and stand barefoot on the earth, your body is electrically conductive. Everything in your body is electrical first, chemical second. So if you have a problem, you have an electrical problem first. And it's kind of hard to explain that real quick, but anyhow, we'll get there. But the earth is like a battery, and it's charged by the sun, and you're standing on top of it, and then your body conducts that energy of the earth. Then your body is, I hate to use tech terms, but your body is negative, meaning it has an abundance of free electrons. And these free electrons only do one thing: they reduce charge. And how this all came about, and what I've spent 20 years, 23 now, I guess, working on is it's about when you have charge differences. Charge is a little challenging to explain, but basically you have positive charges and you have negative charges. And if you have too many negative charges and not enough positive charges, then there's a big movement and it can cause fire. Or vice versa. If you have too many positive charges in your body and not enough negative charge in your body, then these charges cause fire. So, but the reason let me back up and explain a little bit how I got involved with this. I spent 30 years in the communications industry. We had to ground everything to the earth in order to maintain the electrical stability and the working functioning of the components, and and to prevent fire. It's like when we built cable television systems, we had to put a ground rod in outside the house, bring the cable down, connect it to the ground rod, and then let the center conductor take it on into the house and put it to the TV. That was to prevent lightning on the lines, or static electricity on the cable lines from the wind blowing and the dust and everything, to prevent that electrical charges from coming into the home and blowing up your TV set and creating fire. So it's all about fire to a large degree. It's like when you burn a log, you're oxidizing, you're creating a fire in the log. So the word inflammation in the body is meaning the body is on fire. And
Wow.
the reason it's on fire is because it's no longer naturally grounded, because you can't have fire in a grounded body. You can't have charge in a grounded body. You can't have inflammation in a grounded body. In a grounded amplifier, a grounded refrigerator, a grounded computer, or a grounded electrical body, which is conducting. This is kind of foreign, and what I'm talking about is very foreign. So make sure that I ask me questions and make me say it so that people understand what I'm trying to say, because I'm too technical in nature.
So what I find fascinating about your story is
Yeah.
that you asked a lot of questions,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Because you were working with these electrical charges and stuff, but you asked a question that a lot of people hadn't asked, and you didn't stop until you got the answer.
Yeah. One day I was in Arizona, and I was in a little tourist area, and a big tour bus had pulled up, and everybody that was on that tour bus had these big white Nike type tennis shoes, and they looked funny because everybody seemed to have them, and they were just, it drew your attention to it. And intuitively, I had been working with some electrical stuff earlier that day, and intuitively, I asked, is there a consequence to us no longer being naturally grounded? If you don't have a background in grounding, you would never ask that question. You couldn't
Right.
ask that question. So that was 1998. And so I immediately went to home, and I started, just playing around with some voltmeters and electrical meters, trying to find out what's going on, because I knew there's a charge on the earth, and I knew that, our bodies are full of static electricity all the time. EMFs are there, but they're a little different. But anyhow, so all of a sudden I started measuring all these voltages and charges on the body, and I didn't really understand anything about biology at that time, except that I did grow up in an animal on a farm and ranch environment, and so I knew a lot about animal health, but I didn't know much about human health, except that now I know that they're animals too, and they're all the same. I mean, we're all the same actually. But but anyhow, it's like animals in nature. They don't have any modern health disorders whatsoever. They don't have cancer. They don't have cardiovascular. I mean, they will. Some of them will develop it depending on if humans have contaminated their environment. But by and large, animals in the wild, the deer don't have uh, cardiovascular disease. They don't have lupus, MS. They don't have autism. They don't have cancer. It just doesn't exist. And that's because you have a strong immune system. They have a strong immune system. On the other hand, the animals who live indoors with their owners, they have the same health disorders as the owner. 50% of them die from cancer, just like their owners. But anyhow, so the point, I got to stay on track here for you. um, the point is, what we did, or what I did, is 23 years ago, I guess 24, something like that. I just asked the question, and I didn't know. And I figured, well, I'll go home and get some meters and play with it. And then I recognized all these voltages on the body. Part of them were from static electricity. You get lots of static. Most people don't realize it, but you got 2,000 to 3,000 volts of static electricity on your body at all times because of the dissimilar materials, carpets and rubber sole shoes and fabrics on your couch, fabrics and the fabrics you're wearing. If they create static charges, you don't see them or feel them until they get up to around 5,000 volts. Then you'll see a spark when you touch a doorknob or something.
So
Now,
saying environmentally, we've created somewhat of a disconnect within our bodies
mhm,
from the
yeah,
earth. All of the modern technology that we have and all of the things that make us comfortable.
yes, it's the real problem. It really comes down to one problem, and and it's really really simple. In nature, health is your most um, nature is health. I mean, in nature, the animals they have health. That's your most state. I mean, that's your natural state. When you're outdoors, you live in. We live for millions of years. We got here over eons of time, and our bodies kept adapting to our environment. But the main thing that got us here was our immune system. The human immune system is, I mean, all immune systems are there. It's really amazing what we learned, and over the last 23 years, we've done published over 20 peer-reviewed studies, and we have dozens of other technical papers and commentary on the work. And the thing that we learned is, first of all, I accidentally, recognized that pain disappeared as soon as you were grounded. That if you have, and then I learned from a friend that his arthritis disappeared when I grounded him. And they've started sleep grounded. Is what we were doing. We were put tape on our beds and connected to a wire and connected to the earth, then sleep on it. And then we'd measure it with a voltmeter to make sure we were grounded. And then you slept better. And I figured that was because we're eliminating the static electricity. And the reason we ground electronic equipment and all those things is to prevent electromagnetic interference. So when you're grounded, you're naturally protected from EMF, and you can't have static charge on your body when you're grounded. If you are not grounded, then your body's an antenna. It attracts all of those things, and your nerve and it elevates the sympathetic nervous system, which elevates cortisol, which eventually craters the parasympathetic nervous system. Exhausts the adrenals, and then eventually you're full of anxiety, irritability, and then going on to depression, and then on to fibromyalgia, lupus, MS, cancer, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But anyhow, the point was, what we learned is, throughout all of this work, we first recognized that pain, that grounding alone reduced pain in the body. It wasn't until 2004 that inflammation became part of the common language. They never used that term. The word inflame means on fire, inflammation. Okay, so in 2004, Rutger and the boys back at Boston, Mass, they came out with a paper, and it was published in Time magazine, and it showed a picture of the body, and the body was on fire, and it said inflammation. They said, you do not have cancer, you do not have all of these diseases. What you have is chronic inflammation in your body, and it manifests differently in different people based on their genetics and based on their lifestyle. Meaning, some people will have cardiovascular, starts out as inflammation, but they'll have cardiovascular, but it's because of their diet. Other people will be emotionally distraught, so that'll end up manifesting as MS or lupus or something. But anyhow, so the point was that inflammation is the cause of it's the foundation, it's the promoter of all these modern health disorders, because these modern health disorders are only in humans and pets and animals who live indoors. The rest of the world, the rest of the population of the world doesn't manifest these things. So normally I tell a story that kind of keeps us all organized, but right now I'm bouncing around a little bit. But anyhow, so the main thing that happened in this research is we learned that pain, you can't have pain when you're grounded. The pain will automatically resolve and disappear. But we didn't know in the beginning was you have to have inflammation before you can have pain. It was about 2004, 2005, 2006 that we learned that pain is a byproduct of inflammation, meaning there's fire in the body, oxidizing tissue. It would have been known more as oxidative stress rather than inflammation before that. And so there's a fire in the body, and this fire is sending out a signal to there's pain. And the pain is a message to your brain to, I'm on fire, get me out of here.
Do something different.
Something's wrong here. Let's fix this. So anyhow, in the process, and this is all accidental on my part, I went to the medical community, I went to the research community, and I went to UCLA, everywhere. They pretty much all laughed me off campus, and they said, you expect us to believe that somebody's going to stick a nail in the ground, tie a wire around it, and go tie it around somebody's foot? And they were being facetious, of course, and expect us to believe that's going to help them sleep better or make pain go away. They said, get out of here, you're nuts. And this is at UCLA. So anyhow, in the process, I learned that I don't know anything about biology at that time. That was 20 years ago. And they don't know anything about electrical, and they don't understand how, um, I mean, they just don't understand electrical. And I know that everything is electrical first. All life on the planet is electrical. If the electrons keep moving, you're dead. When there's no electrons moving in the brain, you're gone. So everything is about energy and electrical. And and to them, blueberries or antioxidants or whatever. But they don't understand that's not how the body doesn't work that way. The body is primarily about your immune system. The number one thing that keeps you alive, keeps you healthy, is your immune system. If you do not have health, if you have any health problem whatsoever, I guarantee you it's because something is compromising your immune system's ability to restore and maintain health nightly.
And so what you're saying is, if you can ground yourself, you can get back to grounding, which we can do. We can simulate grounding. Then you have a possibility of reducing the inflammation and rebuilding your immune function.
Yes. Yeah, there's a real problem here, because, for the last 60, 70 years, we've been hell bent on, improving our lifestyle creature comforts. We all live in nice homes now compared to what we were back then, those days after World War II. But anyhow, we have nice homes, we have nice shoes, we have nice clothes, we have nice cars, we have everything. But it's a double-edged sword. We gave up nature in the process. We gave up our connection with nature. We don't eat live food anymore. And that's because when you eat live food, you're eating live energy. When you eat processed dead food, well, then your body's got to work hard to get it through the system and make out of it what it can. But then and we lost our ground with the shoes and the carpets and the modern homes. I mean, my granddad lived in a home that had a dirt floor. And he was barefoot most of the time. And at 93, I think the only thing he'd ever taken was an aspirin. But
Wow.
nobody knew these things. And your relatives, if you look back at your relatives, you'll see the same thing. I mean, it's like Native Americans and a lot of they were all barefoot and they had health. And it's like when people come across the border from Mexico, they migrate here and go to work and try to make a living, make money, and so they can take care of their families in Mexico. But once they're here 6 months, then their life is about the pharmacia and the doctor, the routine visits to the doctor, and finally they get so sick they have to go back home, get well, and then they come back and do it again because they're trying to survive, by making enough money to keep their family alive in Mexico.
So
Uh,
it looks like what we associate with like riches, right? Like in wealth, a lot of that stuff is making us sick and literally creating static. Like you use the word static, which I find interesting
yeah,
in our bodies.
yeah. Well, let me explain. Yes, let me explain how the immune system works. First of all, if you have a pathogen or a damaged cell in the body, the immune system sends over a white blood cell called a neutrophil, and there's various others. And the neutrophil will actually wrap itself around that damaged cell or that pathogen. It encapsulates it. They've videoed this so you can see it. And then it releases what they call reactive oxygen species. Reactive means that there's enough power in that acid or that reactive oxygen that it can rip an electron from the pathogen. And in the process, it strips all the electrons, and that's how the immune system destroys pathogens. That's how it destroys. That's how, when we get the flu, we have all this war going on in the body. It's about neutrophils and macrophages and cytokines and everything going in there, and there's a war going on, and they're releasing all of this reactive oxygen to kill pathogens, and we get sick. We feel terrible when this is going on. If you're grounded, you don't experience much of that. because what's happening is you are short an electron. So let me go on. So this neutrophil, as it releases the reactive oxygen and destroys the pathogen, if there's any remaining reactive oxygen molecules left, then they're hot, they're charged, they're electrically charged, they're missing an electron. That's why they're called reactive. So they'll latch on to an adjacent cell or adjacent tissue, strip an electron from it, damage it. And then the immune system, another message goes to the immune system. Hey, there's something going on here. I need help. So another neutrophil comes and cleans up that collateral damage, and in the process creates more collateral damage. So that's inflammation. That's fire. This reactive oxygens are just like when you're burning a log. It's reactive oxygen that's ripping electrons from the wood and creating fire. So so it's the immune system itself that is creating chronic inflammation. It's not because you didn't have enough blueberries or you didn't have enough Advil or you didn't have enough of this. That's a joke. That's people trying to sell what they do and put a label on it. But anyhow, the immune system is what's causing the fire, because you do not have enough free electrons from the earth. When you're grounded and you're touching the earth, then your body is one and the same as the earth electrically. You are earth. You are electrically, and the earth is electrically, it's infinitely large. You put your bare feet on the earth. Now you are connected to the earth, and you have this reservoir of free electrons that's as big as the earth. And your body instantly equalizes. Those electrons migrate into your body, and then you are at the same potential or the same amount of electrons pro rata as the earth itself. So you can't have charge when you are grounded, because these free electrons can move rapidly and reduce charge. It's electrical, like turning on a light bulb. Boom, it's on. It doesn't take digest the vitamin C and do this and that. Hours later, something happens. Electrical is instant at the speed of light. Okay, so when you when you ground the body is negatively charged, free electron. You cannot have free radicals running around in the body, or reactive oxygen running around in the body ripping up electrons, because there's so many free electrons from the earth that it just automatically reduces them and protects and prevents inflammation from happening in the body. Now, you don't want to get confused with the oxidative burst. The oxidative burst is the original burst that goes after the pathogen. Inflammation is when the immune system starts feeding this collateral damage loop, where the pathogens are gone, but now it's just destroying healthy tissue. And so, does this make sense?
It makes perfect sense, especially in this day and time where you see so many diseases that operate this way.
Yes. So anyhow, it's all about the immune system. So if your immune system is compromised because it's trying to put out a fire that it itself is creating, because you are no longer grounded. So now the immune system becomes very compromised. And then over a period of time, your health becomes compromised. And the immune system can't take care of everything because it doesn't have enough resources. So eventually,
but you're saying the best way for us to now become grounded again, because people are not going to change their living environment as much as would need to. We're not going to be living outdoors anymore, or barefoot, because we've got all this Roundup outside and chemicals from the sky and runoff from the water. You have a really simple method of how we can reconnect and become grounded again. And it's a little bit more detailed than what one of the respondees in the video said, that is our way of connecting back to Mother Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Explain your method.
Well, what 20 years ago, we started doing research studies. And in order to do the research studies, we had to find ways to ground people. in order so we could measure. So what we did is we would create a pad or a mat that was conductive, meaning it had conductive properties like carbon or silver in it. Then we would connect it to the earth via a copper wire, either with a ground rod or through the electrical ground of the home. And so then the pad itself was then grounded like sitting barefoot on the earth or whatever. And then we would have people, we would wire them up and do whatever, or we would measure blood and all these things. But anyhow, we would ground people and we would recognize, so we could see the difference, what happens when you're grounded versus when you're not grounded. All this information is available at the earthinginstitute.net. But anyhow, in the process, all of the researchers and the subjects, they all wanted these products to take home with them because they made pain go away. And then all of a sudden they wanted them for their relatives and so on. So it's an accidental business that we created, and it's called Earthing. And it's at earthing.com. But basically what it is we have mats that you can sit on, sleep on, or wrap yourself in, or patches that you can put on areas that are full of inflammation. And it'll reduce the pain, but the patch will reduce arthritic pain in just a few minutes. People who have lupus, MS, as soon as you put the patch on them or get them grounded, the first thing they say is, wow, I don't feel like I have disease anymore, because the body cools down. These electrons are flooding into the body and reducing the inflammation in the body. And then so the body feels good. You start feeling better. And then, but the main thing about all of this, I mean, so when you sit on these products, lay on them, sleep on them, stand on them, whatever, they're electrically charged with earth energy. And when you lay on it, then your body becomes electrically charged with earth energy, the most natural energy on the earth. Your body was always charged with earth energy before modern shoes, plastic sole shoes, so the most important thing here is about restoring your immune system. And so what happens is when you ground, then the body becomes flooded with electrons. Then the first thing, it puts out the fire. It's like I tell somebody what they have MS, and I've been doing this for 23 years, so it's just second nature to me. But if somebody has MS, they're holding their arm, they can't, and they're in pain, and they're just really, their health is really compromised. So I just put a patch on their hand, electro patch. I don't have one in front of me. And I just say, okay, just a few minutes, and the pain starts coming in. I said, no, you no longer have MS. What you have is the damage that was created, the inflammatory damage, you have lots of damage from MS, but you no longer have MS, because as soon as we ground you, the body's flooded with free electrons and it shuts down the neutrophils. They're stopped. There's no reason for them, because there's no more damage being created. Then the immune system can go about restoring the damage that is done. And in many cases, it will return the body to normal, because that's the only thing the immune system knows, is to restore the body and return the body to normal. Health is your most natural state. That's what health is. So
I think that's important to hear, because I was
Yeah.
lupus in 2002 after the lupus test, and all of the medications that I was put on, the cocktails of medications,
mhm,
they did more damage than good.
yep,
Pain was so immense, and it
yes,
be until I could barely touch my own skin.
yep,
Was feeling excruciating pain. And no one explained to me that my body was literally on fire. It
yep,
wasn't explained to me how I got this condition, but because I had these small children and I needed the ability to be able to function, I took a slew of medications that ended up damaging other parts of my body. And I
mhm,
preface this because I want the audience to know we're not here giving medical advice. We're talking
nope,
about experiences. I'm talking about mine and other alternative ways that we can deal with pain management, inflammation, and some of the other diseases that attack our immune system.
right, yeah. So it's Yeah, the earthing, I could go on. I don't know how much time we have. Or do we have a time limit here?
Yeah, have time.
We have time, yes.
Okay, but there's two things that I work primarily over the last 20 years. Moms who have autistic children, moms who have lupus, fibromyalgia, MS,
So much.
cancer. People whose health is extremely challenged, and the medical community can do very little for them. There's no insurance code for autism. There's no insurance code for any of these diseases, so that's why nobody can do anything about them. And the people who try don't know what they're doing most of the time. But anyhow, it's really the thing that I've learned two things over 20 years that are important for everybody to know. I don't have the solution for all of these things, but I do have. I can help people recognize what the cause of their problem is. Most people just go outdoors and spend a half hour barefoot in the morning or in the evening. If you can't do anything else, at least do that. That'll put the fire out for a little bit and get your body a chance to to rebalance. And but if your health is very compromised, then you do need to find ways to ground yourself, even if it's you know a, I hate to say it, but I used to sleep on the ground. I was an outdoor cowboy, so I don't even think about it. But anyhow, you need to figure out if earthing helps you to any degree, then you need to find ways to incorporate that into your life. And it's not about selling product and wires and all these kind of things. This is about nature. This is who you are. You need to reconnect with the earth, the spirit of the earth, the life force of the earth. That's what makes us who we are. You can't be happy, unhappy. You can't be mad when you're standing or sitting barefoot on the earth. It's not possible. It just drains all that stuff right out of you. And I have to tell another story because if I have the time. When I started grounding women with MS, and for some reason they just showed up. And one day I was asking a lady, I said, what happened to you prior to MS manifesting in your life? And she said, I don't know. She was like 34. She said, I don't know. It just showed up and it just kept getting worse and worse until now I have full blown MS. Doctor tells me to go home, get a very comfortable bed that goes up and down and a big TV screen because it doesn't get any better. And I didn't know anything at that time. But anyhow, so about a few minutes later, after I was grounding her and everything, she said, that was back in 2008. That's when it started because that's when we lost our house. My husband lost his job. We ended up with a separation, and my life has just been totally turned upside down. So great loss. And she went into an emotional state where her body was being flooded with fight or flight, cortisol, and stress, and all these kind of things. And so this was feeding the inflammation in her body.
I think that's important to hear because as a mother of a child with autism and the challenges that came with that, I found that after that diagnosis is when I started ending up with all of these health issues. But I didn't even correlate the two.
Yep.
And I've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of mothers with a disabled child.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Stories are all the same.
Yes. It's the same story everywhere. And I wouldn't even guess how many people I've worked with over the years, but it's a large amount. And to make this story a little easier, when I was a kid, we were sitting on a horse and babysit cows to make sure that they're okay. And so you spend your time in the pasture, looking at them, make sure they're healthy. And if they're not, then you have to go take them out of the pasture and then ride the pasture and find out what's wrong. Is there weeds in the pasture? Is there noxious weeds? Is the water contaminated? Is the grass too short? Whatever. And then you fix the problem and move them on because you have to have healthy cows. But in that process, that's where I got my prevention background. Something caused this. If a cow's sick, something caused it. But the thing that when we were doing that, off days, there was nothing to do except watch jackrabbits. Some years we would have infestations of these big long-eared jackrabbits. And whenever there's a lot of jackrabbits, there's a lot of coyotes. And coyotes eat jackrabbits. Jackrabbits eat grass. So the coyotes are sitting there all day long eating the grass like nothing. Or the rabbits are like nothing ever happened. All of a sudden, the coyote sneaks up. The ears perk. The coyote jumps. The rabbits spring into the air. I mean, they can jump 10 feet, it seems like, and they can spring into the air, and then they start zigzagging back and forth across the pasture. The coyote is running more straight, but he eventually runs out of energy and he falls to the ground and sitting there, laying there panting like, you know, that's over. So the rabbit will run just a little bit further and it'll sit, keep an eye on the coyote. And then all of a sudden, the coyote will wander away and the rabbit will just have this. You can see that it's been traumatized. And then just by the way it's acting. And then all of a sudden, it has this visceral shakes it all off. And it goes back to eating grass like nothing ever happened. And the only reason I tell that story is because all of the women I know, I work 99% of the people who work with earthing are female. They're 35 to 55, and they're taking care of their mom and they're taking care of their children. And all too often, there's a child on the spectrum, and so on. And they're alone. 80% of these women they're sleep alone because of their health disorder, because of their diseases and all these things. And so it's just chaos for the entire family. But anyhow, the reason I tell this story is because when a woman gets up in the morning, the first thing she has to do is go on a marathon, taking care of the kids, getting them ready, getting them out of the house, getting them fed. She has a husband, getting him out of the house, and so on and so on. And so these are all coyotes, because what they do, the same thing with that rabbit, is their stress, then your cortisol elevates.
Mm-hmm.
Your fight or flight elevates because you got to do all these things. And then as soon as you get them out of the house, whatever, then you got to do your own stuff. And all too often today, the woman is working. She's no longer just a mom. She has to provide money for the family to buy groceries. Okay, so now she's got to get in the car. And I mean, first of all, she got to take care of herself and go through the rituals of getting ready to go to the world. And this is stress. And then she gets in a car and ungrounded all the time, all the way. We're on carpets. They create static electricity. We have all this other stuff around us. So anyhow, then you get in a car and the car's full of static electricity, and all of a sudden you get anxiety. I mean, it's fight or flight all the way when you're driving a car today, especially in traffic. You go to work, then you go into an office. And it's different for everybody, but you go into an office and you sit down at a desk. You're sitting on a chair that's made of plastic materials. You're sitting on a plastic mat. You kick your shoes off. You're still full of, and then you have all this equipment around you and fluorescent lights and everything. And this all stresses your nervous system, and it elevates cortisol and so on. But anyhow, so these are all coyotes. The boss is a coyote. The customers are often coyotes. The kids are coyotes. The husband's a coyote. The world is full of coyotes. You go to the mailbox and open it up, and there's mail in there. Those are coyotes in there, because you're going to have a response, a fight or flight response every time you get a bill or anything goes on in life. So anyhow, what I try to do is, the reason I tell that story is because you have to, at the end of the day, go outdoors if you can't do anything else. And you got to drain the coyote juice. The coyote juice is the cortisol and the stress that's being created in your body. If you do not get that out of your body, then it's going to sit there and fester, and it's going to manifest. You're not going to sleep well. You're not going to be, and all those kind of things. You're going to have pain. You're going to get, it's just a relentless thing. But if you ground it out, I promise you, they put your bare feet on the earth, put your hands on the earth, just sit on the earth, and find a spot where you can do this routinely. And if things get out of hand, that's your escape. That's where you can go and ground it out, rather than internalize it. Because
I'm sorry, before you came on, you said something interesting too. When I asked, how do we get that with all the chemicals that are outside, and you said you make a small little patch outside.
Mhm.
So I think that's important for you to tell mothers that a small little patch outside.
Yeah, you got to get back to earth and build your own little sandbox and protect it from the chemicals and stuff. If you can't do anything else, your back patio is concrete. It's conductive. It's made of earth. It's on the earth, so it's similar to like being on the earth. If they're very dry and it's very hot, then just spritz it a little bit with some water, and then it'll be just like being on the earth. But fine, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. It just occurred to me that how simple this is.
Mm.
Oh, this is the bizarre thing. I can't believe that I've spent 23 years of my life, doing research, doing all these things, and creating all these things because it's a problem that shouldn't have been existed in the first place. But we got caught up in the lights, the TV, the bright lights, and the computers, the cell phones, all the things that came to us. I mean, with modern technology, and and it is simple, but today you can't. I mean, 60 years ago, you couldn't get off the earth. You were always grounded. 60 years ago, 70 years ago, what is 1960 to now? Yes, 60 some years ago. 90% of the visits to a health practitioner were for infectious disease, childbirth, or an acute injury. Today, 99.9% of all visits to a general practitioner are for a stress-related health disorder, where the immune system is compromised. The immune system can't maintain health. An inflammation-related health disorder, an immune-related autoimmune meaning the immune system is doing what it knows to do, but it's missing the free electrons that would have normally been there in nature. And from live food also. We don't eat that anymore. We don't do anything anymore. But and then yeah, it's all crazy. I could
So
go on.
I
I could
would
go on
think
for
too,
hours.
yeah, like we could go on for hours because this is fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, the food, like live foods, are products of the earth as well. Like especially if
Yeah.
you're if you're picking them fresh,
Yes.
just recently grounded themselves, then I would think, I mean, does it work that way? Are
Yeah.
you getting those
Yeah. Fresh,
electrons?
fresh, fresh food is like an apple. I mean, or a blueberry or anything, a banana. It's still alive. There's live energy in it. If you look at it under a microscope, it's still alive. And as time goes on, the oxidation, like the same oxidation we're talking about, the
Hmm.
oxidation is going to, it'll go bad, and then eventually it goes back to the earth.
So does the science work similar? Like with let's say an apple tree and the apples that are on it, are they grounded the way we should be?
Oh yeah, anything in nature is grounded. Any animal, any plant, any flower, every blade of grass, everything is connected to the earth. I mean, it's the energy of the earth that that's the energy that comes up and creates. I mean, how a plant creates itself, or how a flower or a tree. I mean, this energy comes up from the earth. All trees are grounded. The only thing that's not grounded out there are domestic animals and humans, and they're the ones that have all the problems and creating all the problems.
So, in other words, if, for instance, mothers, because that's who I know the
Mhm.
in this particular with this particular disability, child with a particular disability, for mothers who say, "I do not have time to be outside. My life is so busy. I've got
Yeah.
this, and this." It is possible now to ground yourself when you're sitting at a desk or
Mhm.
you're sleeping,
Yes.
and that
And
can do wonders for them too.
yeah,
Oh,
that's what these mats. That's why we made these mats. I mean, they you put them. You can put them. The long ones. You can put them on a desk and put your computer on them and keyboard, and or you can put them on the floor and put your feet on them, or you can sit on them, or there's a pillow that you can sleep on at night. That is really profound for a lot of people, or you have the mats that you can put on the bed and sleep on them, and that one's really the most important because you don't have to do anything. You just put it on the bed one time, and then all you do is the same thing every night. You get in bed, go to sleep, and nature does the rest. It's just plugging yourself back into nature. It's like yeah, it's natural, it's free, it's yeah. And the patches are for acute injury or for lupus flaring things. If you have a
ah,
flaring arthritis, flaring lupus, an MS flare. But that's where they're, you have it as a cytokine storm, explosive. It's like, I hate to you say that you mentioned autism, but all too often, autism is an inflammation-related health disorder. This is recent literature from John Hopkins about 2 years ago. And what that means is that you get the immune system is challenged, and it may have been shots, it may have been an injury, it may have been something else. But anyhow, so then the immune system has to go to work and fight this and adapt to it or whatever. And in the process, it creates a cytokine storm, a fire in the brain. And then I don't like to get into it because it's not about what I think or believe. It's just that, but it is an inflammation-related health disorder, and the key to that is you can't have inflammation when you're grounded. So it's very important to ground our kids if we don't do anything else, because if we don't do that, we're not going to have a future under any circumstances.
Right. Because at this point, I'm sorry, Sheila, you can go ahead.
I remember years ago, I went to so many conferences to learn how to help my son. And they didn't call it grounding, but there was this piece of fabric and it had these um, silver lines going through. And they say, well, you plug it into the wall. Actually, I still have it. It's so old and beat up because I used it for a while because I couldn't get him to sleep. Sleeping was
Yes.
always an issue. But I didn't even understand what it was because I just bought it at the conference.
Yeah.
And didn't really pay attention to it. And I'm talking about 20, I'm talking about 18 or 20 years ago.
Yeah. That would have been one of our early prototype products.
Well,
Anyhow,
the products.
yeah. Yeah, what happened is as we were doing the studies, everybody wanted this stuff, and then we kept making different kinds, and we had to get to the ones that. The reason I focused on sleep was because that's the only time when people are available to ground. I mean,
And you have to do that, right? You
yeah,
gotta sleep.
and you're not going to move. You're not going to get up
Right.
and run, across the room. So when you go to sleep, that's the best time, and it's the most important time because during sleep is when the body heals and recovers and repairs itself. And so you don't want static charge. You don't want inflammation in your body running hot when you're sleeping, because otherwise you got to get drugged out, drunked out, pilled out, all the things that go with that. And anyhow, yeah.
So at this point, we're going towards like multiple generations now,
Mm.
right? Because 60 years ago, you think about that,
Mhm.
we're in just multiple generations of people who don't even know what the earth feels like to have their
No.
skin or their feet touch the earth. They don't know what that feels like, let alone that they're dying because they don't do it.
I think
No.
people believe that only when you go to the beach should you have your shoes off.
Right.
Well, 20 years ago, they wouldn't even do that then. I mean, I remember going to the beach and having, I mean, it's insane. The shoes are important because they're not necessarily a functional device. They're more of an icon or an identity, and color and style and whatever. It's like I tell people, wear shoes on purpose. If there's glass on the street or it's hot, or you're going to Rome and people there wear shoes, then do it. But don't wear them only wear them on purpose, because as soon as you put shoes on, you lose all contact with the earth, and then your body starts to hold static electricity. And so it's really important not to wear. Just when you get home at night, just kicking your shoes off, you feel better instantly. It's because you discharge that static charge on your body into with carpets or whatever. You equalize, so there's no charge potential, so there's nothing pushing or pulling on your cells.
So
There's one. Go ahead.
even if you have wood floors and tile in your home, you don't even have carpet, you shouldn't always run to put those slippers on. You should just let your feet be free.
Yes, because you're blocking. I mean, your energy comes out of your hands and comes out of your feet. We know this.
You sound like my Qigong teacher.
Yeah, you can actually create energy and feel it and play with it and so on. But when you put something that insulates and blocks it, then you're creating blockage. But the body needs to flow. Everything needs to, it's all flow, I guess. Yeah, your qigong teacher. Qigong. I remember, like in China, it's all done barefoot on Earth.
Right.
In the United States, it's whatever.
But
The yoga.
science now is actually backing.
Yes.
It's backing this.
Yes. Yes. Another thing too, that most people are vitamin D deficient. It's because we live indoors. Before, we used to live outdoors. When I was a kid, you couldn't get us in the house. You couldn't keep us in the house. We would rather sleep in the barn than sleep in the house. But anyhow, all day long, we were in the sunshine and we were healthy. We had health. Now, again, I'm 77, be 78 in a few months. So when I was like 14, it would have been 1958. So we had rock and roll coming on strong. We had life. But we were healthy. We were all healthy. You didn't have fat people. You didn't have people running around with diabetes and MS and lupus and cancer. You just didn't have, you had it, but you didn't have it like we have today. Today, every single person you know is sick. Every person you know, their health is compromised. In nature, life can't go on if health is compromised. Health is the body's most natural state. If you look at the animal world, they have health. Look at the birds, look at the critters, look at all the bacteria, look at everything out there. They have health because there's no inflammation, there's no fire. You can have all kinds of issues, but by and large, if you don't have health, then we're not going anywhere. So
Wow.
the key to it today is, like you said earlier, well, what can we do? We're not going to go live on the earth. We're not going to do this. Well, I can tell you this. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I know that it takes 40 years to bring about a systemic change in our lifestyle or our environments. It's like when television came along, it took 40 years for everybody to have one. Then it took 40 years for cable television to come along and manifest. Then it took another 40 years to pioneer computers and then cell phones. They were a lot faster, but they were just an adaptation of the computer. But anyhow, so it takes about 40 years. So over the next 20 years, what has to happen? We have to recognize, first of all, what I'm doing is education. That's all you can do at this point, because nobody knows what the hell you're talking about until you ground them. In fact, nobody will believe it until they actually get grounded and say, oh my God, why didn't somebody tell me about this 20 years ago? I've actually had people stand up in the middle of an audience, 500 women, and women break out in tears. Well, how come nobody told me about this? An 18-year-old girl in just total chronic pain. She said, I've been going through pain for all these years and all this stuff. And here I sit down for 20, 30 minutes on this grounding mat and it's gone. And she's in tears. Okay, that's how significant this is. But somebody's got to hold those retreats. Somebody's got to teach. And it's the 35 to 55-year-old mom who carries this message forward. She experiences it, then she gives it to her mother, then she buys another one, then she gives it to her sister, she buys another one, and so on. And eventually she grounds the whole family and the relatives. But she has to fight because nobody will believe it, nobody will accept it. So she has to sneak it in or wait till they're sick or wait until they're in pain. Here, do this. But nobody, it's going to take years it's going to take a host of people to pick this message up, experience it, and carry forward. We have, a couple of million people grounded around the world. And we have probably tens of millions of people now that are taking their shoes off and going grounded here and there, or at least thinking about it. And, it took me 20 years. And I don't know, I'm sure I'm good for my granddad. It was 93 when he went, so I've got a few years left. But anyhow, the point of it is, over the next 20 years, we have to start developing flooring that is grounded. It's already available. It's a huge industry. All 911 centers, all mission critical centers, air traffic control, everything, they all have grounded carpet. You can't have you can't have static electricity around anything electrical if it's critical, mission critical. You have to ground the body before you can open it up and do heart surgery. You can't have any static electricity because you'll create a cardio event.
Oh,
Um,
wait, so this information is actually being used then? I mean,
oh,
where they
yeah,
want to use it.
there are millions and millions of people every day that have to put on a wrist strap that's grounded and connected to a wire before they can work on chips or software or anything that is electrically sensitive. You have factories where they have big engines running all that stuff has to be grounded in order to prevent static charge on people. Otherwise, the static charge will build up on those machines and stuff. Somebody touch it, it'll kill them.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so this is a very common thing, but nobody, men, humans, we're so smart. We think everything out there. We don't realize that the intelligence of our own bodies, and we creating our own problems. But um, nobody thinks about when they see something out here. They think about, well, let's ground that machine so that doesn't happen. But nobody thinks about the body. Nobody recognizes the body as being electrical. We're all brains, we're all mind, we're all muscle, you know. Um, but anyhow, so over the next 20 years, we still have to have an army of moms who go forward and carry this forward. That's the only way it will ever happen. Men, and I'm not picking on men here because I'm one, but they're slow and took me 20 years to do this. It should have taken a couple of weeks. But but anyhow, here's the big trap that we're in. I have some friends in Encinitas, California, they're cardiologists, and they have 3 or 4 of them in the same office, and they have a big staff, and they buy grounding products. And one day they called up, wanted some grounding products, and so I said, "Well, I would just stop by and see and meet you." And he said, "Sure, John. Just let them know at the front desk." So I went there, and I had a half a dozen grounding products for him. I gave them to him. He paid for them, and I says, "What do you do with these things?" And he says, "Well, we use them to keep um, to stay off the hypertension meds,"
Wow.
meaning the doctors were grounding themselves and so on. And I said, "Well, why don't you give this to your patients? Because it really works for cardiovascular." And he said, "Oh, no, no, we could never do that." He says, he says, "First of all, if somebody comes in that door," he points to the door, and he says, "If somebody comes in that door, the first thing that happens, I have to give them script where they'll never come back. They'll go on to the next guy. I have to give them script." And then he said, not only that, he said, when somebody walks through that door, they're worth $10,000 to me just to run tests and get them into the system. And he said, and it goes on and on. But he said, you have to realize that I've got 12 years of college and still paying for half of it. I'm married to a woman who is married to a doctor that wants to live like a woman who's married to a doctor. So I've got cars, I've got big houses, I've got all this stuff, and I have all these people working in this building. I have to feed them. I have to make payroll. So I have to follow convention because I have a conventional medical practice. I cannot tell people to go home and take your shoes off and get well for free, because what am I going to do? What's going to happen?
And on that note, we're so grateful to have you, Clint.
Yes.
Well, I'm grateful to be able to share this because that's what my life's all about now.
Wow. So, we're running out of time, Clint, but tell the audience where they can find you.
Well, they can find me at the earthinginstitute.net. There's lots of research there. There's lots of thousands of testimonials and people talking about their experiences and so on. Otherwise, earthing.com, and earthing.com is a company that sells products, and it really goes against my grain to be able to have to talk to you about products that you have to pay for. But on the other hand, this is essential. Once you learn about this, you have to find ways to ground yourself indoors. So what we've tried to do is to make products that are as inexpensive as possible, that most of all function, that they're going to last. We have lots of generations that didn't last, and there's lots of crazy stuff on the market today. But these products are made of carbon. They're clean, they're safe, and they function, they work. They hold you at earth potential. And other than that, they do nothing. They are not going to cure any health disorder. What they're going to do is connect you to the earth, and it is the earth that is going to cure you. It's Mother Earth. It's reconnecting with your mama. It's living in harmony with Earth.
Well, I
With
want to
it.
say that, yeah, you might buy these products, but has anybody noticed how expensive healthcare is lately? Like, if
Well,
you
yeah.
have a health problem, how much that cost?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can't afford. See, and that's another thing. Earthing, I have always called it poor man's medicine because it doesn't cost anything. It's free,
Yeah,
except for the cord or the mat or whatever. But
right.
reconnecting with the earth is free.
Yeah, those products, I mean, whether you go outside and just connect with the earth yourself, if you're able to do that. Like, I live where I'm at now, it's cold. So the idea of my feet on the cold ground right now isn't appealing to me.
It's not gonna work.
Right.
Yeah.
But, I looked at the price of your products and I'm like, I mean, compared to just one doctor visit.
Well, yeah, and I do that on purpose because most of our customers don't have any money. If people have insurance and can afford to go to a doctor, they're still going to do that. The only time they come back to us after that is after the insurance company's thrown them off the system, or the doctor says, "I've got nothing else to offer you."
Right.
Then the would-be docs get a hold of them and rape, rob, pillage, and plunder, and then eventually they have nothing. And then when they have nothing, then this makes sense. And then when they experience, they say, "Oh my God, why didn't somebody tell me this?"
Well, we definitely appreciate you, Clint, coming on.
We do.
We want to give, so Maya and I are committed to giving our audience really natural, inexpensive ways to help facilitate healing within their bodies. And I definitely, thinking back, I actually used one of your prototypes all of those years ago,
Yep,
but it wasn't explained to me.
exactly. That's the problem. Education. Yeah,
Right. We need to get the education out there and let
yeah,
people become aware of other alternatives.
yeah, of nature.
That's right.
It's not an alternative. This is really, it's like sunshine and oxygen and water. It's who we used to be, and we accidentally disconnected. We accidentally lost our ground,
Literally.
Yeah.
literally. Yeah,
Literally.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And now it's so there's an army of people that have to surface to figure out grounded floors, grounded couches, grounded beds, grounded everything, grounded living environments, grounded schools. You have to restore. If this is part of our immune system, it's what holds our ground is what holds our immune system, maintains our immune system electrically stable. And based on that, that means we have to be grounded when you're sitting on the couch watching TV. Otherwise, your health is compromised.
Well,
Anytime you're not grounded, then you have potential for oxidative stress, inflammation, and it may be subtle. It doesn't mean anything to you. A little ache here, a little pain, or whatever, or a cough, or a sneeze, or whatever. Run and get the eye drops. Whatever. You've got to. We have to find ways to rebuild our future living environments, our future workplaces, our future schools, our future uh, we need to reincorporate, and this is happening every day, an inch at a time. We got miles to go, but it's an inch at a time. Green, this things are happening, and there's an awakening occurring. You can see it everywhere. Um, Whole Foods is a big step forward. Not that the concept is perfect. The prices are ridiculous sometimes, and sometimes the food isn't what I would consider whole food, but that's irrelevant. It's a step in the right direction.
well, you've given me an idea. I'm
Hmm.
going to buy one of those long bed pads and I'm going to put it on my sofa.
Yeah,
Just,
well, a lot of
Oh,
people do.
yeah.
I
That's
don't
an
have to wait for the people to come with the furniture.
Well, that's the key today. See, it's the young moms of the world that are going to do this, that are doing it. It's like the average woman who gets grounded, she will ground 12 other people within a year, but she has to fight all the way. And the only reason she got grounded is because her health, she was in serious, her health was compromised. And she had to put the fire out. She had to get the fire out and get her life back in order to take care of her kids and her mom. And her mom fights every inch of the way. Get that out of here. Get that off me.
So are you all the mama bears? So look into earthing.
That's right.
Earthen
Yeah.
Institute and earthen.com.
Yep. And watch the earthing movie. It's free on YouTube. There's no commercials. I kept it that way. You don't have to subscribe to Gaia or anything like that. Just go to YouTube. It's free, commercial free, and it's got about 4 or 5 million views now. And it's an award-winning movie, and it's audience award-winning movie at the film festivals and so on. And but it talks about, it's real people telling their story. It's authentic.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yep.
Thank you so much for coming.
All right.
So that was Clint Ober. Sheila.
Fascinating. With her,
You know, when he was talking about the average mother grounding 12 other people, it was so funny he said that. Because
yeah.
in my mind, I was thinking about everybody up in here that's going to be grounded. I'm like, I'm going to get one for this one, that one, this one.
I know when he said,
Ground everybody.
well, I know when he said we've got to wait on these other areas, you know, the carpenters and the wood makers and the craftsmen and the furniture makers and the floor carpet makers to come up with all of these grounding materials for the home. I can get the lawn pad and put on
Right. Right. Right.
just about everybody in here.
Exactly.
Children, there's several issues going on in our world now, and he was absolutely right when he talked about how we played outside barefoot. I know when I spent every summer in the country with my grandparents, that's what we did. We played outside barefoot. I mean, we connected with the earth. I probably ate worms because I made mud pies out of my grandmother's eggs, but we never got sick.
Right.
We had all of that wonderful sun. We had this earth, the water, just any and everything that really connected us. We picked our vegetables fresh, our fruit fresh, and that's how we literally ate. But now you can hardly send children outside to play without being supervised, and parents are busy. You have so much runoff from Roundup and all of the chemical pollutants you find in your grass, on the sidewalk, raining down from the sky. And yet, he's developed something so simple,
It's so simple.
inexpensive to reconnect you.
Wow. And how simple is that?
Very-
Earth, sky, you stick yourself in the middle and solve like 99% of your problems.
That's right. And, you know, I mentioned walking barefoot at the beach, but he's right, because I remember the few times we went to the beach as children. We had those thongs. You remember those little thongs? I think they
Oh
still.
yeah, the little flip flops or
Yeah.
whatever, the little and the gel shoes too.
Yeah,
Remember
yeah.
those?
But the flip flops were so cheap, so you go and you get them. I think
Uh-huh.
you use them when you send your children off to school for the dormitory showers. But my parents would have us put those on, and the first thing I did was take them off because I
Yeah.
didn't feel that sand between my parents were in sandals, and over time they forgot
Yeah,
about the connection, or even if they even knew, because I'm gonna say for my parents coming out of the country and what have you and being so abject poor, they equated being barefoot with being poor,
Right.
not having. So shoes were important. And
Right.
even now my mother tell me, because I walk around barefoot, and she'll say, why do you not have shoes on? Don't, because I've been telling you that your entire life. I said, Mother, I'm not going to catch a cold. I've told you before, because I don't have shoes on my feet.
Right.
I just like to feel. But I can understand after talking to him why we like to feel.
Well, we like to feel, yeah. Wow, this is fascinating.
But it was.